Alright, hello chess friends, this is Zachary Beckedall coming back for our 6th part of our 12-part series. I'm a National Master and Poder Academy chess instructor. We've really worked our way through a lot of videos here, a lot of good stuff. We started with just how to move the pieces, then we worked into checkmates with 2 rooks and 1 queen. We went from there into our basic opening principles, and then we switched back. We actually built off the opening principles in lesson 4 and did some forks and pins. And then we switched back and did a couple endgame lessons where we did one with the opposition, and then kind of 5B where we did one with pawn wars and all of the tactics that come into pawn endgame. So that's all good stuff. Now we're going to switch back again and go back to our openings, and today we're actually going to learn the basics of the Gyoko piano, some moves in chess. So the way this works is this is an opening we're going to memorize, but the point is not just to memorize the moves so that you can beat somebody with memorization, but so that you get some of the patterns of, in your game, what a grandmaster is thinking while he's playing those moves and what the point of them are. So if you're in any chess position, you can try to think of those things and it will guide you and help you. And the other thing is, memorizing moves is good because you get into similar patterns that you're comfortable with and you know where to play good chess. If you have moves memorized, it shouldn't matter if you're playing Grandmaster or just your friend. You're going to be able to make moves where you can stay out of trouble and you have some traps, which is really good. And so it's important as you get better and better to keep adding to your opening repertoire, and you'll get to the point where in pretty much every opening, the first few moves you have memorized, and then after that, you know the plan that you should be going for so that you can keep making good moves even past your memorized moves. So this opening is the Gyoko piano. It comes off of our king pawn openings where white plays to king pawn 4 and black plays to king pawn 4, and it's probably the most popular opening for beginners because you follow all of the basic principles in the opening. And we talked about those in our 3rd lesson where you attack the center with pawns, you develop minor pieces, and you castle your king. And so all of those are very important. And so what we're going to start with is our knight to this square, and we start off with a move where we're attacking our opponent's pawn. And it's important in as many positions as possible, without putting our pieces in bad places, to keep attacking our opponents. If we can keep attacking, keeping our opponents having to defend and make good moves, that's important. And we're going to see that all the way through. If you never attack your opponent, there's not very much of a chance he's going to make a mistake. Where if you just keep pressure on him every move, you never know when he's going to make a big blunder. So here, black's best move is knight here to defend the pawn. So we already have this battle for the center that we've been talking about, where both sides are trying to earn as much of this territory here of these 4 squares as physically possible. Now, white's bishop comes out to this square, and this is an important square. We talked about this. It's kind of a free-range bishop, and it's attacking f7, which is important. And then after this bishop moves to this square, what white does is he's going to make this pawn move. Now, that pawn move is important because what white wants to do is he wants to push his other pawn into the center, and if he can go there, he can earn the whole board. But if he goes there right now, we've got to look carefully, and this is how you analyze this. You say, okay, the knight and the queen will defend this pawn if we put it here. However, for black, the pawn, the knight, and the bishop attack this square. So white has 2 defenders on the square, black has 3 attackers. So this is not safe to go here. If you go there, you're going to lose material. And that's keeping track of the points that we learned earlier. Pawns are 1 point, knights and bishops are 3 points, rooks are 5, and our queen is worth 9 points. We have to have those memorized so we can make good decisions through the game. So instead, white's going to make this move here, and we call that a lever pawn. This pawn is going to defend this square and help him earn the center. And so now black moves his knight out, and remember, in this opening, both sides are playing good moves. So we're looking at some mistakes that players can make, but basically you can see that both sides are going to make good moves. And so when that happens, we're going to get to a position that's relatively equal. Usually white's going to be ahead a little bit because he has the first move, and that extra move counts for something as long as he keeps his advantage. So now white's going to strike in the center, just like we talked about. What we want to do is get our pawns up into the center. And then here, both black pieces are under attack, and he has lots of choices on which piece he wants to take here. And black is going to take with his pawn. And the general rule in chess is always take with your smallest piece first. So now white has a choice. He can take with the pawn, the knight, and the queen. They can all take this square. And white's going to take again with the smallest piece, the pawn. Now that leaves black an option. He could take this pawn, And both his knight and his bishop are attacking it. But that's only 2 attackers, and white has 2 defenders, so this pawn is safe. So you always have to keep track. Here there's 2 attackers and 2 defenders, the pawn's safe. He would need 3 attackers if he was going to take it, so he's going to move the bishop. Now this is a position where lots of players make mistakes. If you move your bishop back, you're in trouble here, because white has all these great pawns in the center, and black has none. And now white will just push forward and scare these knights back, and really has just really dominated his opponent because he put his pawns in the center. And so that's what white would like to do. And anytime your opponent lets you, you're going to just keep pushing those pawns forward as long as your opponent doesn't have any pawns in the center, and just earn more territory. And the more space, the farther your pawns are advanced in the center, we call that more space in the game. It's more free for all your other pieces to come up and help you out. So here black actually needs to play this move and put his opponent in check. And that saves him enough time that he's going to be able to put his pawn in the center and also fight for that center territory. So now white's in a position here where he really needs to think and make the right decision. If you just move your king when you're in check, the problem with this is now you're not able to castle later on. Your weak king will come back to hurt you. You also have to be careful of points. Moving your queen up to a place where she'll get taken, you're going to lose 9 points and only get 3. That's not going to be smart at all. So black needs to block with either his knight or his bishop. And in this position, the bishop is the best piece to block with. And he'll block check there, which is what we always want to look for. We either want to capture our opponent's piece or block as often as we can when we're in check. So now black will take here, and this is just an even trade. He's going to get a bishop, he's going to lose a bishop, and that's going to happen a lot in chess. Don't be afraid to trade pieces when the material is equal. Now, if you have a big material advantage, trading is really good, because when you have more pieces than your opponents, if you can trade all the pieces off, you'll be left with some pieces, he'll be left with none. And if you're behind in material, if you're behind a lot, you don't want to trade, because that end game is not going to be good for you if you're down in pieces, and it's going to be harder and harder to come back. So if you're behind, trading is not good. However, here, when everything's equal, trading is perfectly fine. So now black has the time that we talked about. He's able to capture here, give him time to strike back in the center, and make sure he has the center. And you can see how that battle just goes back and forth. Now, white has 2 pieces under attack. He's going to take with the smallest one. And black could take back with the knight or the queen. And of course, he's going to take back with his knight the smallest piece. Now, this brings us to a position where white wants to castle and get safe, but also he wants to play aggressive. We talked about the more we threaten our opponents, the more they have a chance to make mistakes. And if we don't threaten them, they don't have a chance. White could, for example, just play bishop takes knight, and queen could take the bishop, and that'd be an even trade. But instead of that, he wants to put pressure on his opponent, so he goes right here. Now, we talked about how we usually don't move our queens out early, and here you see how we waited to move all of our knights and bishops out before we moved our queen. And the general strategy with our queen is we're going to move her to a spot on the side of the board where she's safe. It's harder to get to her. She's not just in the middle where she's going to get attacked, but she's also productive. This is a great square where, okay, the queen's doing things for us, helping us out, but it's not in any danger. And that's a great strategy with your queen. Put her somewhere safe where she can still be productive. It's a lot of points hanging there you want to use, but don't put her somewhere she's going to be taken or get in danger and have to be scared away a lot. So the queen comes here, and this sets up what we call battery, where we line 2 pieces up that can both help us attack. And the nice thing about this is if black does nothing, the bishop will take the knight, and if the queen takes the bishop, this queen is backing it up, battering it up, and is going to be able to take the queen for free. So the other problem for black here is if black moves his knight, then this bishop can take this pawn, the battery keeps on working, and the king cannot take back because the queen defends. So we got a lot of really good things here in the works for white, and there's a lot of mistakes that black can make. Another mistake that's very popular is the bishop will come to this square. Okay, black is doing good. He's got 2 defenders on this square. There's only 2 attackers, so he's safe. But when he moves the bishop, the defense on this pawn is gone. This queen, just like we said, is productive over here, can come up and take this pawn for free and we'll win a point. And so that would be really nice. So the best move here for black is actually moving his knight back, where it defends the knight and keeps it safe. Another mistake for black, I suppose, would be moving his knight here, where now it defends this knight, yes, and it looks like more of an aggressive move, but white will use this tactic where he removes a defender, we call it. That's a nice tactic. And now he's attacking this knight, and the problem is, okay, if this knight moves, we'll take this one for free, and if he leaves this knight here, we just take it and win material. So black has to find the right defensive move here, and you can see how this put pressure on our opponent and gave him chances to make lots of mistakes, which is what we want to do. So when he comes back here, now white's going to finally take the time to castle his king and get safe. Notice how white did not move any pawns on the side of the board, and he kept all these pawns here so the king is safe. That's really nice. Now when black castles, he does the same thing. Both sides took time to make sure their kings got safe early. We talked about that before. You're just banging your head against the wall if you're going to keep leaving your king in the center in a spot where he's going to get attacked. And the quicker you can just get him safe, the more success you're going to have. So we get the king nice and safe. And then here we're at the end of our opening. These are all the memorized moves. And we can see how our opponent could have made mistakes all the way along. We'll take advantage of them. But we'll get to this position, and if we play this position a few times, we'll know it really well. So either way, even if our opponent knows all the moves too and knows how to play good chess, from here, hopefully we're more experienced. The last thing I'm going to leave you with here is that in these openings, after you've moved your knights and bishops out of the castle, a good idea then is to use your rooks. And rooks are going to be good on open files, which is any file without a pawn. So here the E file is wide open without a pawn. And a good strategy for white to take on here would be to move one rook onto the open file and possibly even double up. And we'll have more lessons with that in the future about how we can use our rooks well. But if you're kind of stuck after the opening and you've been following along these video lessons, you're not sure what to do, use those rooks now, put them on open files, and that'll help you. And you can see here in this lesson we took on where a good spot for our queen was too. So now I've really talked about where we can place all of our pieces in the opening and middle game, and that'll help us start a really good base. So before we move on, I want to talk about some popular traps that come up all the time, so that if your opponent falls for one of these traps, you'll be ready to catch him and take advantage of it. The moves we just looked at were good moves for both sides, where both sides really played to the book and knew all the moves and had them memorized. So what if your opponent doesn't know the moves? Well, let me show you the popular traps. After pawn up, knight here, a popular thing black will do is he will copy you. Maybe he doesn't know what to do, maybe he thinks this is a good strategy to copy, and it's really not, and we're going to take advantage of it right away. One of the greatest ways to take advantage of copying is to start capturing pieces, because normally if you start capturing pieces and you're a move behind, you're going to end up on the bottom end of that, and that's exactly what happens here. After knight takes, white will move his queen to this square, and now black should realize that he's actually in quite a bit of a danger here. I'm going to take these pawns out. If he moves his queen and copies you, you will take his knight, and now he can't take back because you just win the queen for free. Well, so a lot of black players are smarter than that, so they see here, okay, I'm in danger, I need to move the knight out of the way. But that sets up a great tactic. We've already talked about forks and pins. Here is what we call a discovered attack. Basically, the only thing stopping the check on the king is this knight. So anywhere this knight moves is check. The cool thing about that is if you move your knight over here, it's check, he's not able to take your knight. We could even move our knight somewhere like here. Okay, now it's check, he's got to get out of check, he can't take our knight with all of his pawns. So this is a nice position for white where he's got a tactic coming. And so I'm going to give you a chance here to take a look at the board and see if you can find the best square for the knight. And this square is really going to help us get off to a good start. And I'll let you pause the video and see if you can find the move. Okay, so the move here is actually knight c6. A pretty move because the knight can be attacked by 3 different pieces, but because black's in check, he's got to get out of check first, and when he gets out of check, we're going to be able to take the queen. And there we had our eyes on the prize. We were ready to take the most important piece. We saw what was valuable. Now we're going to win 9 points, which is really great. Even if black would have put his queen here to block, we'd still play knight takes queen and win a bunch of points, which would be really good for us. So that's our tactic here. It's a discovered attack. Think about it a little bit. Try to come up with ways maybe you could set that up in different positions. Anytime you see that kind of position where there's one of your own pieces blocking a check, anywhere you move that piece, you basically have a free move, and it can be super dangerous. So that's a great one to look for. The second trap I'm going to show happens when our opponent tries to defend their pawn with their f-pawn. Now this is a really bad move. I like to say in chess you should just take some moves out of your vocabulary. This move, just don't play it. It opens up your king, blocks the best square for your knight, and doesn't develop a knight or bishop, so it's not a good move. Here, the knight's actually going to take this pawn, and we're going to make a sacrifice here where we give up points. And sacrifice in chess are very fun to play, but also very risky, so we've got to be really careful. When we take this pawn, we know we're getting taken back. And if we have no plan moving forward, we would just be down 2 points, and that would not be a good move. But since we did know what we were doing and we were ready, this is perfectly good sacrifice if we've looked ahead. So the reason the sacrifice works is because we have this great queen check. And notice how, again, we're moving our queen out early if our opponent's king is weak. And that is that one exception. If your opponent's king is weak, you really need to take advantage of that. If your opponent's king is not weak and you're moving your queen out, more of a chance it's just going to run around the board and be no good for you. So here this is great because black's best move is actually to block the queen check here. And then I'll let you see if you can see the move again. Go ahead and pause the video or take a good look at the board. See if you can find the move. Yeah, this one's not too difficult. The move is queen takes pawn check. And this is nice because not only does it attack the king, but it also forks the rook over here. So we'll get in a position, maybe he'll block with the knight, we'll take the rook, and let's just do a quick count up here. We ended up winning a rook and 2 pawns for 1 minor piece. So we're going to be ahead 4 points there. And that was a great trade for us. It worked out fantastic. And so the sacrifice we ended up starting in the beginning where we gave up 2 points ended up panning out really, really well for us because our opponent opened up his king and because we saw far ahead. You don't want to make those sacrifices unless you really see everything that's coming. So those are just a few of the popular mistakes. I'm going to show one last one that I think is important, and if you remember, it actually happened in our lesson before. In this position, this is the start to our Gyoko piano. We've already moved our pawn in the center and moved our knight and bishop out. We're ready to castle at a moment's notice, and we're attacking this square. And we noticed that black's best move last turn was this. And this was the start to our Gyoko, and that's where we played pawn up and pawn up. And I know I've said it in a lot of videos, but pause the video, rewind it, go back through, and try to really memorize all of these moves in the Gyoko piano so you have them down perfect for white and black. You're going to want to play those moves for black if white does the Gyoko against you. If you know the Gyoko piano after this halfway, probably won't help you very much. If you memorize it till you have it down perfect, you're going to be able to use this opening for the rest of your life, and it could really help your chess. And so just remember, it's much more important to get one little thing down really, really well than to, have a tiny grasp of all these things I'm talking about. So try to really, get it down well. Good chess instructors say the same thing over and over and over again because that's what's important, making sure you know something. If you come out of it with, these millions of things in chess and you just have a little grasp on them or you don't understand them, you're not going to play well. So here, this was the right move for black. If he plays this move, you'll remember here we worked on this fork last turn where this knight comes up to this square and now we've got 2 attackers on this square and only 1 defender, and this is not a good position for black. And white's planning on playing knight takes pawn next turn and forking the rook and the queen. So don't forget about that trap that we had showed before. That was one of our fork tricks and one of our bread and butter moves that we're going to look for. And it comes right out of the Gyoko piano. Just a trap. Every time your opponent moves here, you can make this move. And so there's a little system where you can memorize the moves and even against a good player, stay in the game. And if your opponent makes any of those mistakes that we talked about, every single game you can take advantage of them and you'll have a few traps under your belt so you can get off to a good start, which we talked about was so important. So hopefully you got some of the Gyoko piano down. There's thousands of openings to choose from in chess. This is a great one to start with and then branch out to a Sicilian or Caro-Kann or a French or any of the other openings. All of the openings in chess are strong openings that grandmasters have come up with. I recommend this one. Usually starting players should play their king pawns forward first. It's the easiest way to get castled and safe and to really stay away from big mistakes. And then from there you usually branch out and do some different things. So thanks for listening. We're looking forward to lesson 7 next, where we'll be going over more tactics and strategies. Thanks for listening. Bye.